Hey folks, Fernando doing our video for the Modern Survivalist, and yeah, a little bit of a change of scenery here. This was suggested by one of my viewers that said in my Spanish channel, dude, you're always in the dark in your bunker like a lunatic. It's kind of depressing. So especially for this first point, and before I go on with the video, remember to subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this, you're likely interested in this preparedness and survival lifestyle, which is what it is. And so as to not miss a video, subscribe to the channel, click on the notification bell button, because if not, YouTube will not alert you of anything new that I'm uploading, and you probably don't want to miss it if you really want to prepare. So the first thing, point number one, is chill, relax. The world is not going to be ending and everything is just fine, okay? This is probably the worst possible time for you to start preparing, because it is a lot more imminent than it used to be. It's all fun and games when it's all about what you see in The Walking Dead. It's different when you have a global pandemic and you have an election that's likely to turn ugly and social unrest already in the streets. So what I'm hearing a lot these days is, man, I just caught this too late. I should have started years ago, and now everything is super expensive, and now I can't get anything, and I just don't have enough time. So chill, relax. You have enough time. The world is not going to be ending, all right? What happens if you do this, and I've been doing this for many years, I've seen lots of doomers, and you know what happens? First, they get depressed, and they depress the people around them. They get divorced, their husbands, wives don't stand them anymore, their children don't stand them either, they end up alone, sad. And I've also noticed, if there's one thing you're going to be needing, is a positive attitude. Glass half full kind of mentality. Being a doomer will be the first thing that ruins you when things turn ugly. And besides, what's the point of all of this? If you want to survive, it's because there's a life worth living. If not, just don't even bother, all right? So point number one, relax. You have enough time. Everything is fine. The world is not going to be ending. Okay, so now that you decided that you want to prepare, number two would be looking at what you want to prepare for specifically. My advice is make an actual list, something like this. You basically need 3 columns. One is going to be life, things that are unavoidable based on human nature. You're going to get sick at some point. You're going to be dying eventually. Surprisingly enough, that seems to be that thing that catches by surprise preppers and survivalists the most. And I'll let you know a little anecdote. A few years ago, I got an email from a young man, just married, had a new baby, and all of a sudden his wife just gets sick and dies. And he was telling me that one of the things that he was struggling the most was they didn't have life insurance. So not only is he dealing with the horrible grief of losing the love of his life, his wife, and the mother of his child, not only is he dealing with that, he also has to deal with that baby that he has no idea how to look after, and also the economic aspect of all of this. They were relying on both incomes. All of a sudden, one of those incomes is there no more, and he was telling me, if at least I had that taken care of, it would have made life not better, but yet a little bit less horrible than the mess I'm dealing with right now. So get life insurance, get one of these accident or sicknesses insurance in case you can no longer provide for your family because you're unable, because you've died. Get life insurance for sure. And also in terms of sickness, it is life. That's the way it is. You're going to be getting sick for sure, maybe several times. And what this means is you want to stay as healthy as possible. You want to eat as well as possible. Don't fill yourself up with crap. Look after yourself, your weight, your cardio, and be honest. You don't have to be a magazine model or anything. You just have to be in realistic good shape so as to be healthy, enjoy life, not getting sick from things that are avoidable. Check your blood pressure, go to a doctor, get a blood test, see how you're doing. If you're morbidly obese, if your cholesterol is through the roof, your blood pressure is impossible, then man, you really have something there to look after rather than worrying about 9mm versus 45. And that, I'm sorry to say, it's the reality for most preppers. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. And for those that are overwhelmed with the amount of stuff you have to buy, focus on this. Focus on your health, on staying fit. It is going to be ticking many of these boxes. If you're fit, if you're strong, you're going to be better capable such to defend yourself. That covers lots of things regarding crime, violent attacks and such, avoiding disasters, getting out of dangerous places. If there's a terrorist attack, running away from that threat. There's lots of things that are directly affected by your fitness level, all right? How well you eat, that's also all crucial. It also changes the way in which you feel, the way you think. So the mental aspect, the physical aspect is by far the most important one. Then, of course, number two here on this other side, in this R bar, you have the things that are likely to happen throughout life. Likely to have like a car accident or an accident while on the street or in your job. Accidents happen. Crime, it's just something that may end up happening. This will depend on a lot on where you actually are. There's places, I did the same video for my Spanish channel. For lots of people in Latin America, crime, violence has to be moved pretty much here because it's something that you basically deal with throughout life. It is almost unavoidable to deal with this sort of thing at some point. So if you live in a very safe community, maybe it is here. If not, maybe you move it over there. And maybe if you're just very lucky and live in a very, very safe place, maybe it's one of those things. You know, it's just very unlikely to happen. Fires, house fires, forest fires. How is it that you prepare for all of that? Disasters, natural or man-made. Again, this will depend on where you live. If you live in New Zealand, you have pretty much earthquakes every single day of lower magnitude or a little bit greater, but it's something that you just live with. And maybe it's moved here as well. It's something that you just have to accept. It's going to be happening. Eventually, you'll get a bigger one, and you have to prepare for that, all right? If you live in a place that gets flooded badly every couple years, every 5 or 10 years, again, maybe it's here, you know that. You have to make up your mind about what is it that you're really preparing for. And then there's personal disasters as well. This is a kind of thing where, you know, it's just, seems like the end of the world for you. You're getting divorced. You're just in a horrible relationship with your loved ones, with your children, with your parents, whatever. You're struggling and suffering because of this. Especially when it comes to divorce, it ruins people's lives, especially men. They no longer see their children. They cannot afford the financial burden of it, and it's just things that they haven't prepared for it. And maybe if they had been a little bit more careful regarding some of those decisions, they would not be in as bad a position as they end up in. Okay, be smart about all of this financially as well. You know, personal financial problems. You end up, you know, losing your business or without a job or whatever it is. Saving money, getting ready for that, having alternative income sources, having a second job or something that's a hobby dash job that you can actually monetize on. I mean, stuff like YouTube even. These are all things that eventually you can do more with if you put a little bit more time to it. That is yet another way of getting by if it ever comes to that. So planning along all of these, and in many cases, some of these are covered by the same activity or the same money and time spent. What I mean by this, you're eating healthy, you're working out, maybe you're working out doing some martial art or practicing a sport involving shooting. So it covers the mental aspect of being healthy and even physical to a point. You're covering skills that are useful for self-defense. You maybe hunt and you eat quality meat. You know, you try to cover as much of these as possible. Finally, you're going to be looking at those less likely events. The way I look at it is, has this ever happened before? If it hasn't happened before ever, and it's just one of those fantasies, man, I'm really hard-pressed to put much time, money into preparing for that. You know, maybe I just have to listen to it, but usually what I want to know is, has this happened before? So, less likely events, pandemic, we're seeing one right now. The last big one was in 1918. So they happen every once in a while, but they do happen, and we're now through one. And is stuff like war. Do wars happen? All the time. All the time there's a war going on around the world. And this may well be a civil war. You know, stuff that you may relate to some degree. Depending on where you live right now, this may be something that you're more or less concerned with. In the case of South America, it is a big problem, especially the financial, the left-wing politics creating a big mess. Folks, you in USA see this as well. And I know lots of you are worried about this. But this is one of those things that from an objective perspective, is a little bit less likely, well, it's quite a bit less likely to happen, but eventually it may end happening because it has happened before. So you prepare for that. Large-scale disasters, tsunamis, like some of the horrible ones we've seen, hundreds of thousands of people killed. The one in Katrina, another example. These are things for which you need actual plans, and there's some gear that you may have specifically for these. EMP, solar flare, doesn't happen all the time, but every once in a while can happen, can have a very big impact on your quality of life, on your survivability. Terrorist attacks, it may be a number of things, from planes crashing to buildings to a dirty bomb, or a biological or chemical attack of some sort, or a mass shooting, and this may be connected to preparing for crime, right? These are things that you kind of have to list like so, and specifically for you, your own case, where you live. Maybe you live in a cold weather environment, a location where a winter without electricity means you pretty much end up dying, you're freezing to death. So that's one of the things, power outage, snowstorm. This is gonna be maybe here, top of your priorities of the things that are likely to happen and have a very big chance of impacting negatively your life. So now that I know what I want to prepare for, number 3 would be, how do I actually go about preparing for these things? And here I'm going to be using something from my book, 3 Survival Skills, the page where I talk about Rule of 3. The Rule of 3, if you're not familiar with, says the following: you cannot survive 3 minutes without air, cannot survive 3 hours of exposure to extreme weather conditions, you cannot survive 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, and 3 seconds with a shot to a critical organ. So this is a way in which you prioritize and understand the things that actually keep you alive. You're going to be looking at air as maybe one of the most fundamental things you want to ensure. This means the classic image of the survivalist, which is what? A gas mask? Of course. Why is that? Well, because of this. Because if without air, you're done. You're not going to be surviving more than 3 minutes. So in case of course, a pandemic, smoke, fires, ash, from wildfires, volcano ashes, all of these things may impact the quality of air or even the breathability of it. So you want to look at how you prepare for that. In terms of shelter, how is it that I survive in extreme weather conditions, extreme temperatures? It's not about just clothing, which may be a matter of life and death in certain parts of the world, but also regarding shelter in general. What happens to my home? How ready is it? What happens if I lose power, if I lose energy, if I lose heat? What happens if I lose my house entirely? Do I have an alternative place to go to? These are all questions you have to ask yourself and try to find answers for. Same thing goes for water. Do I have enough water for a couple weeks? Do I have ways of purifying water? Do I have an alternative source of water if the faucet is no longer working for me? In terms of food, goes without saying, you want to eat every single day. Pretty much if you don't eat, you end up dying eventually. So food is definitely a priority. And the thing about food is that unlike these 3, food is kind of more expensive. It's kind of less easy to acquire when it's not around. And that is why you want to have, if you have already a month worth of food, work towards, a couple months, and then 6 months, and then a year. You cannot have enough food. And of course, in terms of violent attacks, muggings, robberies, just crazy people, these are the kind of things that all of a matter of a second, your life changes and you have to defend yourself. And this, of course, is also one of the things you want to prepare for. The other thing I find quite useful for organizing how I prepare for all of this is what I call the 7 circles of preparedness. And it's basically like a concentric circle that starts with your brain, your mindset, your mental attitude, which is, of course, the most important part of all of this. That's the foundation on which everything else is built upon. Second, as you expand that circle, you have your body, your main tool in this world. Taking care of that will make all of this a lot easier. It is your most important, most valuable tool, and the one most preppers seem to matter for the least. Keep that in mind. I insist, if you're losing your mind about all this expensive stuff that you need for prepping, remember, taking care of yourself cannot be any cheaper. It actually saves you money eating less crap that you probably already eat. All right, so you're going to be saving money as you prepare in one of the more crucial, most important aspects. As you expand, you have your EDC, the tools you keep with you. You keep on expanding that. The tools that you keep and gear that you have in your house, your workplace, your vehicle, your bags, bag of bags or whatever kit you have, everyday carry bags, your home, whatever alternative location you have, a bug out location that you may have set up, or a place you can go to, your community. You keep expanding on that, the social network of the people around you, expanding more of that to a state level, to an international level, in terms of being aware of events around you in a global level even. This is important because it allows you to do some of the more intricate preparedness that is covering, the possibility of war, of civil unrest because of ongoing events, stuff like the pandemic. All of this stuff, if you're aware of what's happening around you at an extended level, not just locally is important, extended is important as well. And these are the ways in which I find it useful so as to organize not only the gear, but also the steps and the different plans I'm gonna be working on. So number 4, and this is where a lot of people get kind of depressed, is the gear and the stuff that you actually need to actually use during different kind of emergencies, disasters, and inconveniences throughout life that may be of greater or lesser degree. But my advice would be this: start with your EDC. Keep it simple. Start with many things that you probably already have around your house. So you have a pocket knife, you have a flashlight, that's fantastic. Start carrying this. If you're going to be buying it and you just don't want to overdo it because it doesn't fit your lifestyle, start easy. Start with a flashlight and a little pocket knife for your keychain, something like the Victorinox Mini Champ. I'll leave some of the links below for some of this stuff in case you're interested. But don't overdo it, don't go nuts. If you already have at least a flashlight and one of these little pocket knives in your keychain, you're already ahead of the curve. Most people just don't have a flashlight, which is maybe one of the most useful things to have when there's different kinds of emergencies and disasters. If you're caught in a building during a blackout, whatever it is, flashlight super valuable, and your phone is not a flashlight. Now, you want to take it a little bit more serious and get proper tools for this. You may want to get an actual folding tactical knife, a multi-tool, a Leatherman, a proper flashlight. This would be one of the things I'd go for myself. And especially for this video, folks in the United States, get yourself your carry license. Even if you're not planning on using it, get yourself a carry gun and get yourself a carry license and actually go to a class where they teach you how to use this properly if you ever have to. This would be one of those things that you want to have it even if you don't plan on using it, because eventually you may want to use it, and that will be the time in which it's going to be either very difficult or downright impossible for you to get, okay? Besides this, of course, your cell phone, your wallet, maybe a couple things here and there, but start with your EDC. And finally, number 5 would be the rest of the gear. Organize your home, vehicle, workplace, some second residence, or some other place you may frequent depending on your lifestyle. And of course, the plan, the strategy that you're going to be implementing depending on what's going on, the different contingency plans that you may have. Remember, without that, none of this makes any sense. And you probably have a lot of this around your house. It's just a matter of organizing, so don't feel overwhelmed by all this stuff you have to buy. When it comes to firearms and self-defense, that sort of thing, you don't need a ton of stuff. I would definitely want to have a semi-automatic pistol like a Glock. If you have a revolver, or if you're going to be getting a gun at all, it's not your thing, you don't have anything, and you're not planning on practicing and training a whole lot past a basic defensive shooting class, then get a revolver. If you already have a shotgun from your grandfather, your father, or a lever action, those are also fantastic. If you're going to be buying stuff and you have the funds for it, semi-automatic rifle, AR, AK, and a Glock would be my advice. But remember, without the proper training, without the proper strategy, I mean, you can have lots of guns, lots of training, but if you don't have conscious safety habits in your home, then you're going to be a lot more exposed. That's the way in which you avoid potential situations where you may end up needing a gun in the first place. The way in which you would be organizing this, and here's a list from my book where this is a list that will probably help you out as to see what you may be missing. you're gonna be looking to cover most of the basics, such as first aid, have a fire extinguisher, of course, food, water, enough food for as much as possible. You cannot have enough food. If you have a month, then go for a couple months, then go for 6, and then go for a full year. You're gonna be eating it anyway, as long as you're alive. Same goes for water. Having at least a couple of weeks of water, having means of purifying water, and having an idea of where you're gonna be acquiring more water if it ends up being necessary to do so, if the faucet is no longer working for you. Most people start with a bug out bag, and a bug out bag may not be the first thing I would start with. As I was saying, your EDC seems to be something more relatable and more likely to be used, okay, and a little bit more simple so as to get started, but eventually putting together a bug out bag, which needs to go along with a proper bugging out strategy. Where is it that I'm going? What's the plan? The bug out bag is intended so as to get you from point A to point B. Masks, gas masks, like we talked about before, not just because of coronavirus, but because of a pile of other potential situations, volcanic ash, fires, ash from forest fires or wildfires, collapsed structures, collapsed buildings. There's a fallout from a nuclear war. Who knows? A biological attack from a terrorist. You just don't know. You just know that air is a priority. Same for communications. And I was talking with someone that was getting their ham radio license. It is fantastic. Go for it. Don't feel overwhelmed by this. You just do this as funds allow and as times allow. But you want to get radios for communicating. You want to get something that's very useful, a solar panel. Generators are going to be more expensive. I'll leave some of this stuff there in the links below, but a generator may be needed or not, depending on what your priorities are and how you have your house set up. If you're going for the basics and in a tight budget, go for a big solar panel like these ones that are like 4 panels and just fold on top of another. These are good for camping. Also, if you run out of, if you're without power, the first thing you're going to be looking at is your phone. You're going to be wanting to charge your phone. We know this from different disasters across the world where people form lines to charge their phones. And this is something that is perfectly capable of charging your phone, your wife's phone as well, 2 phones easily with one of these panels. Same for a laptop or a tablet. And same for the batteries that you may have for your different devices, flashlights, radios. Remember also that a decent toolkit. Here I have my toolbox, but man, this is just for illustration purposes, right? But tape, tools, knowing how to use these, knowing how to repair stuff, the fire extinguisher, like we were talking about it in another video, silver, money, cash. Cash is by far one of the most useful, besides your own mindset and determination and your body, which is your basic, most important, most valuable tool you have in this planet. Besides that, funds are probably one of the more crucial tools any prepper can have. A bunch of possible scenarios in which things go wrong. Money is a thing that gets you through that. You lost your job. You are without, you're just needing something. You're losing your home because of a disaster, and you need somewhere else to relocate. You need to move. Whatever it is, there's usually most of these cases in which money is definitely valuable to have. So precious metals, cash, crypto, whatever that is, and we've done videos about this before. But funds, savings are a key aspect of your preparedness and is often overlooked, right? Some ammunition, you don't have to overdo this. Have a gun, maybe have a handgun and a long gun. That will be it. Not overdoing it either if you're looking to stay in a tight budget. Okay, guys, I guess I covered a little bit of everything. Remember, if you're interested in this sort of thing, as always, I recommend Street Survival Skills and the Modern Survival Manual, my first book as well. Links for both are going to be there below. Folks, thumbs up for the channel, for the video if you liked it. Share the video. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell button. But really, share it with people that you may feel are in that same situation, overwhelmed by preparedness, especially given the context in which we are right now. Lots of folks hurrying into this and feeling they just cannot do everything. Have an awesome day, guys. See you in our next video. Take care.